Good evening. Welcome to the March 3rd, 2025 Troy City Council meeting. We request all cell phones be turned off or muted for the duration of the meeting. The invocation tonight and pledge will be led by Mr. Whidden. Please stand.
Tonight we ask for clear guidance and wisdom in the decisions we make that will affect our city. We ask for unity of purpose for our city, our state, and our country. We ask for peace and happiness for all the citizens of Troy. We ask for the protection and safety of our police, firemen, and educators.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mrs. Knight, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Schilling?
Present.
Mr. Twist?
Here.
Mrs. Sneed? Here. Mr. Phillips?
Here.
Mr. Sievert?
Here.
Mr. Pierce?
Present.
Mr. Whidden?
Here.
Mrs. Marshall? Here. Mrs. Westfall?
Excuse Mrs. Westfall. Second that.
Motion to excuse Mrs. Westfall, Mr. Schilling, second by Mr. Pierce. Mrs. Knight, please call the roll.
Mr. Twist?
Yes.
Mrs. Sneed? Yes. Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Sievert?
Yes.
Mr. Pierce?
Yes.
Mr. Whidden?
Yes.
Mrs. Marshall? Yes. Mr. Schilling?
Yes.
Mrs. Westfall is excused.
Mrs. Knight, will you please read the summary of our February 18th, 2025 council meeting, please?
Minutes of Council, February 18, 2025. There was a public hearing held on resolution number R12, 2025, the application for farmland in an agricultural district. Committee reports. Law and Ordinance Committee recommended legislation be prepared to provide for the 3 legislative items required for the Smith annexation of 57.679 acres from Concord Township. Safety and Health Committee recommended that legislation be prepared authorizing an agreement with Premier Health Partners related to the Troy Fire Department providing primary emergency medical services to the UVMC campus. Resolution number R8, 2025, regarding municipal services for the proposed Smith annexation of 57.679 acres was given first reading and adopted. Resolution number R9, 2025, the buffer requirements for the proposed Smith annexations containing 57.679 acres was given first reading and adopted. Resolution number R10, 2025, consenting to the Smith annexation, 57.679 acres was given first reading and adopted. Resolution number R11, 2025, agreement with Premier Health Partners was given first reading and was adopted. Resolution number R12, 2025, application of Scherre Mumpower for renewal of farmland and agricultural district was given first reading. Following various comments, Mr. Titterington gave a lengthy report regarding a water main break and a snow emergency, following which council then adjourned at 8:13 p.m. And I did provide council with a corrected page of the minutes.
Approve the minutes.
Second. Motion to approve the minutes by Mr. by Mr. Whidden, second by Mr. Twist. Mrs. Knight, please call the roll.
Mrs. Sneed? Yes. Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Sievert?
Yes.
Mr. Pierce?
Yes.
Mr. Whidden?
Yes.
Mrs. Marshall?
Yes.
Mr. Schilling?
Yes.
Mr. Twist?
Yes.
Minutes are approved.
Thank you. We'll begin our committee reports tonight with Building and Utilities. Mr. Pierce.
Thank you. Committee members Phillips and Sneed met February 19th regarding budgeted renovations to the cemetery, residence office area, and the chapel. Funds to renovate and update both areas were included in the Cemetery Endowment Fund, Fund 672 of the budget. It is the recommendation of this committee that legislation be prepared authorizing the Director of Public Service and Safety to Ohio to advertise for bids and enter into a contract for the renovations of the Riverside Cemetery former residence office area and the Sarah Hayner Dickey Memorial Chapel at a total cost not to exceed $295,000, respectfully submitted by Councilman Phillips, Councilwoman Lynn Sneed, and myself as chair, Samuel Pierce.
Anyone have any questions on that? All right. Moving on, we'll move to law and ordinance.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr.
Whidden,
President.
you have a couple?
Thank you, Mr. President. This committee met February 24th to consider the application of Scherre H. Mumpower to continue to have 25.15 acres of ground located on the east side of Lytle Road, placed in the agricultural district. This is the 7th such application for this parcel of land. This application must be filed every 5 years. The required public hearing was held February 18th with no comments received. It is the recommendation of this committee that Resolution R-12-2025 be adopted to approve the application for 25.15 acres on the east side of Lytle Road to remain in the agricultural district. This is respectfully submitted by Christy Marshall, William Twist, and myself, Jeffrey Whidden, as chair.
Any questions on that one? Continue.
Thank you. This committee also met on February 24th to consider on February 24th regarding changing the name of a portion of Goldenrod Drive within the Somerset Reserve Plan Development. It has been noted that within the plat document, some road names are not consistent, and this change will provide consistency. None of the lots have been built upon yet. It is the recommendation of this committee that legislation be prepared formally changing the name of Goldenrod Drive to Pinecrest Drive in the Somerset Reserve Plan Development. Residential from the south cul-de-sac on Goldenrod Drive to the west boundary of the subdivision. And this is respectfully submitted by Christy Marshall, William Twist, and myself, Jeffrey Whidden, as chair.
Any questions on the name change? Thank you very much. We have two committee at the whole reports. The first one, all members of council participated in the committee of the whole on February 19th. The meeting was chaired by myself. The purpose of the meeting was to provide council with information regarding the budgeted water and sewer master plans, and for the council to provide staff with direction to know council's expectations regarding proceeding with the master plan updates to determine cost estimates to extend utility lines to the north to the northwest, to be in a position for industrial base expansion and new investment. All members of council supported moving forward to select companies to complete the master plan updates and to acknowledge the potential high cost of extending utilities, but agreed this was a direction the city should take. It is noted that no legislative action is to be recommended at this time. Staff will be working on recommending professional service agreements to complete the updates of the water and sewer master plans, which plans will also include cost estimates for the extension of the utilities. And this is respectfully submitted by Christy Marshall, Jeffrey Schilling, William Twist, Samuel Pierce, Todd Sievert, Susan Westfall, Bobby Phillips, Lynn Snee, and Jeffrey Whidden. Any questions on our extensions? On February 24th, the Committee of the Whole regarding Priority Plaza concept design. All members of council participated in the Committee of the Whole on February 24th. The meeting was chaired by Council President Roselle. The purpose of this meeting was to review a conceptual design for the improvement of Priority Plaza so that the recommended design can be included in the overall downtown streetscape and safety project, which will be presented to council as a committee of the whole on March 10th. Excuse me. All members of council supported the concept, with some asking questions about the water feature. Staff and the consultant will review reducing the size of the water feature and providing a point of view rendition of the landscaping in the front of the mural. It is noted that no legislative action is to be recommended at this time. And this is respectfully submitted by Christy Marshall, Jeff Schilling, William Twist, Susan Westfall, Todd Sievert, Samuel Pierce, Bobby Phillips, Lynn Snee, and Jeffrey Whidden. Any questions on our Priority Plaza discussion? Then we will move on to citizen comments time. Anything on our agenda tonight that you'd like to come up and make a comment about? come to the podium, give your name and address for the record, and have your say. No one venturing forward. We will move on to resolutions. Mrs. Knight, could you please read Resolution R 12, 2025, please?
Resolution number R 12, 2025, resolution approving the application of Scherre H. Mumpower for renewal of farmland in an agricultural district. This had a public hearing at the prior meeting, and this is the second reading.
Move to suspend the rules.
Motion to suspend the rules by Mr. Twist.
Second.
Second by Mr. Phillips. Mrs. Knight, please call the roll.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Sievert?
Yes.
Mr. Pierce?
Yes.
Mr. Whidden?
Yes.
Mrs. Marshall?
Yes.
Mr. Schilling?
Yes.
Mr. Twist?
Yes.
Mrs. Snead?
Yes.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Twist, second by Mrs. Snee. Mrs. Knight, please call the roll.
Mr. Sievert?
Yes.
Mr. Pierce?
Yes.
Mr. Whidden?
Yes.
Mrs. Marshall?
Yes.
Mr. Schilling?
Yes.
Mr. Twist?
Yes.
Mrs. Snead?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Resolution is adopted.
Thank you. Mrs. Knight, will you please read Resolution R 13, 2025, please?
Resolution number R 13, 2025, resolution authorizing the Director of Public Service and Safety of the City of Troy, Ohio to advertise for bids and enter into a contract for the renovation of the Cemetery Residence Office area and the Sarah Hayner Dickey Memorial Chapel, cost not to exceed $295,000. First reading.
Move to suspend.
Second. Motion to suspend by Mr. Twist, second by Mr. Phillips. Mrs. Knight, please call the roll.
Mr. Pierce?
Yes.
Mr. Whidden?
Yes.
Mrs. Marshall?
Yes.
Mr. Schilling?
Yes.
Mr. Twist?
Yes.
Mrs. Snead?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Sievert?
Yes.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Twist, seconded by Mr. Pierce. Mrs. Knight, please call the roll.
Mr. Whidden?
Yes.
Mrs. Marshall?
Yes.
Mr. Schilling?
Yes.
Mr. Twist?
Yes.
Mrs. Snead?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Sievert?
Yes.
Mr. Pierce?
Yes.
Resolution is adopted.
Thank you. Moving on to ordinances. We have one ordinance tonight. Mrs. Knight, could you read Ordinance 04, 2025, please?
Ordinance number 04, 2025, ordinance authorizing the name change of a portion of Goldenrod Drive in the Somerset Reserve Plan Development Residential in the city of Troy, Ohio. The name change will be to Pinecrest Drive on from the southern cul-de-sac on Goldenrod Drive to the west boundary of the subdivision. This is the first reading.
Move to suspend.
Second.
Motion to suspend by Mr. Pierce, seconded by Mr. Twist. Mrs. Knight, please call the roll.
Mrs. Marshall?
Yes.
Mr. Schilling?
Yes.
Mr. Twist?
Yes.
Mrs. Snead?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Sievert?
Yes.
Mr. Pierce?
Yes.
Mr. Whidden?
Yes. Move to adopt?
Second.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Whidden, second by Mr. Sievert. Mrs. Knight, please call the roll.
Mr. Schilling?
Yes.
Mr. Twist?
Yes.
Mrs. Snead?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Sievert?
Yes.
Mr. Pierce?
Yes.
Mr. Whidden?
Yes.
Mrs. Marshall?
Yes.
Ordinance is adopted.
That concludes our business for the evening. Mrs. Knight, are there any communications or announcements this week?
The reminder to file the financial disclosure statements, that is all.
Okay. Any comments, Mayor?
I have nothing this evening, thank you.
Mr. Titterton, Director of Public Service and Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of dates to remind folks. You mentioned earlier, February 24th, we had the Committee of the Whole on Prouty Plaza. That is leading to the March 10th meeting, Committee of the Whole meeting, where LJB and their team will present the design concepts for the overall streetscape project. That'll be, again, on the 10th at 6 p.m. in this room. The other one to announce is to let people know those that have items out at the Riverside Cemetery. Spring cleanup of the cemetery begins on March 15th through April 15th. And so if there are things to clean up, to remove, that would be the time frame to do it in. That's all I have. Thank you.
Director of Law, Mr. Kerber.
No, thank you this evening, Mr. President. I have no comments.
Mr. Twist.
I had a couple people ask on if they have suggestions or comments on the Prouty Plaza redesign. Do we want them sent in a specific area or just comment on the city website, or is there a specific route we want them to take?
There is
Come March
not
10th.
any. There are several avenues that they can take. I mean, they can certainly reach out on Facebook through message us on Facebook, and Lauren will get that information.
Okay.
We do have a link to email on the website.
On the website. Okay. A
And
couple people asked, is there a specific just for that?
on the page for the project, there is a link in there with an email to the Streetscape project. You can email
Okay.
comments and questions.
On the
Yeah, it's
page.
on that page.
Does that go directly to the consultants, or does that come to us first?
I think it comes to us, but it's specifically about Streetscape.
Anything else, Bill?
Nope, that's it.
Mr. Phillips.
I have nothing this evening, thank you.
Mr. Pierce, like your tie.
Thank you. I don't have anything to say tonight.
Okay. Mr. Wood.
All good tonight, thank you.
We are a talkative group tonight. Mrs. Marshall,
I have nothing.
you gonna let me down? Mr. Schilling.
I have a few comments I would like to take some time.
You haven't let me down then.
Okay. And this is in reply to, I had, about a month ago, I had asked the ODA administration to report on the alcohol activity in the Dora district after council approved an application for an alcohol dealer to set up a dispensary in the downtown district and import an alcohol dealer dispensary permit from another area of the state. I felt that this request was valid after council spent considerable time discussing the pros and cons of the establishment of a cannabis dispensary in the city. There were several reasons why council didn't approve the cannabis dispensary, but the main reasons were the addictive qualities of cannabis, the effect on our student population in the schools throughout the city, and the overall perception and desire to protect the public image of Troy as a safe, family-friendly place to visit. Alcohol is more addictive than cannabis. Alcohol is involved in more domestic violent incidents than cannabis. Alcohol consumption in excess possesses more danger to our law enforcement officers than does overconsumption of cannabis. If there's an epidemic of cannabis consumption in our schools, there must be a river of alcohol running down the hallways of our school buildings. The Surgeon General of the United States recently confirmed that alcohol consumption is a direct cause of certain cancers. Within the city boundaries, we have 50 or more alcohol dealers, all selling their product by state permit from some type of dispensary, whether this is a restaurant, drive-through, convenience store, or retail grocery store. 4 of these dealers have imported permits from other areas of the state because the alcohol dealers in Troy, Ohio, the family-friendly community, have exhausted the state's allotted supply of alcohol dealer permits. I'm not saying that we should ban alcohol dealers in the city of Troy, but my question is, when is enough enough? Can a restaurant, convenience, grocery, or other type of store or business or event be successful in the city of Troy without selling alcohol? We all know of examples of successful restaurants that don't sell alcohol. We all know of restaurants who have alcohol dealer permits but failed because of poor management or menu offerings. Alcohol sales is not a key to a successful business. Council cannot legislate against the existing dealer permits, but we do have the ability to deny importation of new alcohol dispensary permits because of saturation of a neighborhood or a designated area. Over the last 8 years, and as a cancer survivor, I spent some time raising funds for the Comprehensive Cancer Center at The Ohio State University, the James Cancer Hospital, to support their life-saving research and their one goal, which is to end cancer. Based on the goal of these institutions, the support I have given, as well as my life experiences, I will have a difficult time supporting more alcohol dealers in the city of Troy. I ask all members of council to take a hard look at alcohol. If you have correctly decided that you cannot support cannabis in Troy, then can you also reach the decision to no longer support the growth of alcohol dealers in Troy as well? Thank you.
Thank you. I do have a question, whether it goes to Grant or to the chief. On the last permit, the tracks permits, is there any legal grounds that where we can say no to them?
Yeah, it's not automatic. I'm not prepared to tell you those factors right off the cuff, but it's, they do have to secure the legislative authorities' consent prior to that occurring.
Mrs. Snead. Speechless, aren't you?
I'm just formulating or thinking about that question, but I'll ask a further question later, I guess. But I'm going to steal Mr. Sievert's thunder and remind everybody that our at-large meeting is on March 22nd at 9 o'clock a.m., but you can tell them where because I can never remember the name of the exact location.
Halifax, Halifax
The Halifax Villas Community Center. 100 Huntington.
But you need to go in off of Finsbury.
But you go in off of Finsbury. Right.
I just know it as the clubhouse with
That's what
the new Harlow development. So, but hopefully everybody can join us.
Did you remember your other question?
No, I'm
Okay.
thinking I have to
If you do, we'll come
think about that one.
Mr. Siebert.
No, I just wanted to share briefly a comment. I was at the UPS store the other day. I was about 7th person in line, and there was somebody using a fax machine, and I didn't know this was going on, but maybe other people did. And they were here for the Division III wrestling tournament, and they were grandparents. Their grandchild was wrestling, and I didn't say anything because I was 7 people deep in line. But the accolades that they were talking about, Hobart Arena and the accommodations and the parking, and when we do these things again, I guess we didn't. Well, when we renovated Hobart, but even with the arena or the stadium with the turf and everything else, it is an amazing how many people actually come to Troy for athletic events. The soccer tournament will be coming up for the Strawberry Festival that brings in hundreds, if not thousands, of people, and just be kind and do good. That's what I would ask, and it certainly pays off to the community, and these people were very, very impressed, and I just stood back and listened, and it was a neat thing to hear. Thanks.
All right. Just pass along, which we've already talked about. On the last present, kudos to the first presentation on the 19th. People that saw it on thing, outstanding. They liked the slides. They could see the slides and everything. The only complaint from the last meeting was some people would like to see who's addressing the question, and the slides got over top of them. But I assume that's a rarity, and we'll move on from there because we've already talked about it. Other than that, I don't have a whole lot else right now. Anyone from staff? Audience? Man, we are just not. It is Monday, isn't it? It's still, okay. With that, we will have a meeting on the 18th, I believe is the next one, right? No, 17th. 10th is the meeting of the whole, 6 o'clock here. Next council meeting will be, that is the next council meeting. So, we are adjourned.
17th.
17th is the next one, St. Patrick's Day, so come have fun, but come responsibly.